It's been a while since I revisited the upcoming Gothic 1 remake and everything that has been happening around the game. Over the past few months we had a chance to see some gameplay in a closed demo that creators like CohhCarnage got to play. We managed to see some raw gameplay, of course in a different scenario where we were not playing as Nameless Hero, but nevertheless at least we got to see some combat and exploration, which looks promising, but of course it's early to say now until the game comes out or we get closer to the release. But most recently we got some more news and footage as making of documentary has been announced with a trailer where they talk more about the essence of Gothic and what made the game stand out so much even after like more than 20 years after its release. I will first start off with how devs see Gothic and what it means for them, where we can kinda understand their approach to this, and then I will go over some new gameplay footage and snippets that were also shown in making of video. So it does seem that their priorities are set straight when it comes to gameplay formula of the original game, being that most of the devs leading the project grew up with Gothic, so they understand the small details and intricate, like little things that made it stand out. First from the immersive design, meaning that you being this new guy, a nobody in the Valley of Mines, where you had to learn the world on your own before even having a chance to buy the map or steal it or do something else with it in the first place, so you know where you are actually on the map itself. It was a very immersive experience for the first time if you don't know anything around you, because then you had to figure out where you can go and where you can't go, and the game gave you some hints but it wasn't really telling you, so if you were not careful and you were not listening to NPCs telling you don't go this way, it's like dangerous, you have orcs and so on, if you went that way, well, you were in for trouble. Then how conversations between player and NPC were written so that they feel realistic and something you would hear IRL without too much dramatization or theatricals, including how quests were done where you had multiple ways of sorting it out, and depending on how you approach the situation it made the game progress as well, as you slowly started choosing your allies and enemies, because you have a goal. That goal is to enter the castle and deliver something without spoiling, and they won't let you in. It's such a nice premise that made Gothic stand out for me in all of these years, and why it's one of my favorite games of all time. This has to be captured in the remake, otherwise it will never be what the original Gothic was. The sole reason why people still love it is that the formula behind the game was so modern and pushing into the future that you have games today struggle to, create or even recreate that atmosphere. Of course, game, even though for us who played it is still beautiful, let's face it, majority of new players or new generations, most won't be going back to play it. It's sad, but that's the reality. So I think the approach from the devs is to give old players, veterans of the genre, a Gothic game with modern graphics, while keeping most of the stuff intact, and for new players, something that they can experience and, basically see this IP for the first time. And maybe after this they go back and play the originals, which is, something I always recommend. Stuff like combat animations changing as you improve, having freedom with quests, being immersed into the world is still there. And I like how they mentioned that they used playable demo that was released a while back to get a strong reaction, and I said back then that it's good that they released it. They would be able to gather a lot of feedback, which they did, and that's why they decided to remove stuff that people were complaining about. They also mentioned that feedback can be tricky, as people with various opinions and everyone thinks that their version is the right one, which, yeah, Gothic community is passionate, so no wonder, but most of us want them to capture the feeling of the original, and even though some are saying that it's best for Piranha Bytes to do it, let's face it, as they were coming sadly to the closure of the studio, there is no way that Piranha Bytes would also shine with a new Gothic game. Another sad thing, but it's the reality, because the team that made Gothic 1, 2 and even 3 simply wasn't there for, the future. I really want this to succeed, as more Gothic is always good, and I never thought that someone would be remaking this, but if this does really well and really good in sales, then maybe we can get a chance for Gothic 2 remake. One step at a time, of course, but my point being that we will always have the originals, nothing is going to replace them, or stand in our way of actually playing them. But you know, think about how much more popular this IP can get if they do this right and bring in all of the new people. Now, in the trailer we also saw some new gameplay, mostly comparison footage of like old camp, swamp camp, and then outside part of the new camp with the rice fields, which looks interesting, you know, definitely a lot more damp and dark. I like it though, with, you know, footage from new camp, but we already had some images of it like on the inside, but overall I still think it looks really nice and how original would look like if it came out in 2025, let's say. So they really captured the new camp really well. They are also pushing for a more grayed out realistic look, which I agree with, because playable demo was way too colorful and cheerful for what I think design behind Gothic was. I mean, technically Gothic 2 has more vibrant and fields with grass, but Valley definitely not. There is of course a lot more vegetation now, with areas being a lot bigger than before. They also added some new ones that make sense, or in a sense opened up some areas like the mountains, where they will have some of their original quests and missions. And we also saw, and we knew about this, that we're gonna be able to climb some stuff, which is a new feature technically. Also, Old Camp during the scene looks really nice. It's a lot bigger in scale, which is good decision, being that it should be like that, but of course it wasn't doable with the tech they had back then in like 2000 and 2001. Combat will still be on the heavy side, but you will get faster as you get better, obviously, with improving your skill with trainers and people around like different camps. Also, bows and crossbows are going to have a proper aim option now, which is really good. We also have this moment where Nameless fights a fire lizard, and I like the sound of the hit and how Monster reacted to it. For as long as it's not clunky, I mean, this can be a good mix of the original combat with added details. Definitely much better than the one in playable teaser. I mean, that was awful. Soundtrack will be good, I mean, we know that much as Kai is working on it, so I honestly have no fears about it at all. My biggest worries for this game is going to be around quests and missions. I hope they remain as is, or at least they capture the original formula and they allow for freedom and of course optimization. Being that this is an Unreal Engine 5 game which could be in a world of hurt if they don't allow them enough time for optimization. But look, so far they're not rushing it, and that's good. Gothic was around for a while, there is no need to release it as fast as possible. But right now this is just speculation and my hopes. This is the best option we have right now for a new Gothic remake, and I wish they succeed, I really do, but I can't say I don't have fears for it, obviously, as probably everyone in the community has. We are also still, I think, far away from the release, but at least marketing is ramping up, so things are moving forward. They will have something else for Steam Next Fest, which is from February 24th to March 3rd. Honestly, I think maybe releasing that demo that they were given to content creators would have been nice. I mean, it's probably a dream, but it is something that I think would give them even more feedback on what they currently have. So I will be checking it out and ultimately what it turns out to be and report on it. So if you want to stay updated with everything Gothic Remake related, consider liking and subscribing. Also join our community on Twitter and Discord, and huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters. This is LKM signing out, and stay classy everyone. Bye bye.